Michael was stumbling around the cockpit of his old ship, trying to focus on the controls. He'd had a few too many Alpha Centauri beers. He needed it. Life hadn't been kind to him lately. His wife had left him for an antimatter trade mogul, a guy with more money than Michael could dream of in 10 lifetimes. Then he'd lost his job at a small space freight company. Everything had fallen apart, and now, here he was, in the middle of the void, with a headache that rivaled his wounded pride. The ship shuddered. A bright flash startled him. He could see a massive B-class cruiser speeding toward his tiny ship. And then, darkness. When he woke up, the first thing he felt was a sharp pain in his head. The second was the cold metal beneath him. A noise snapped him out of his daze. Something was approaching, each step echoing, heavy, intimidating. "Human." The voice was firm, filled with authority. "You are aboard my cruiser. You crashed into it." He opened his eyes. In front of him stood an imposing figure, tall, majestic, covered in a black dress that seemed to move as if it were alive. She was a stunning alien, clearly, but there was something else, something in her gaze. Defiantly, the human cracked a smile. "And who do I have the honor of calling my hostess?" She didn't answer right away. She just watched him, as if she were sizing him up. "I am Queen Ciara of the Clior system, and you, intruder, are our prisoner." The cuffs I'm wearing already gave me the hint I'm not the guest of honor, Michael shot back. The Queen raised an eyebrow. She wasn't used to sarcasm. It wasn't common on her planet, but she remembered her interstellar protocol classes had taught her how to deal with species that used it often, like humans. So she replied, "Are all humans this insolent?" "Only when we wake up in handcuffs," Michael said. Then he added, "So tell me, Your Majesty, what's a queen from the Clior system doing sailing through the Orion Nebula? You're more than 10,000 standard units from your planet." "It's a pleasure cruise, human. A cruise you've had the audacity to interrupt." The next thing Michael remembered, he was being taken to a cell, but not an ordinary one. The walls pulsed with an energy that seemed to block any attempt to move too fast or think too hard. Fascinating, he thought. Hours later, the Queen's daughter appeared. Princess Zinnia was younger, but just as imposing and beautiful. Her eyes shone with an intense violet hue. "So you're the human who crashed into our ship?" Her tone was cold. "The one and only. Do you have good insurance? Because my ship is in pieces." The princess didn't reply, but a faint smile crossed her face before Michael spoke again, this time with a much more serious tone. "Tell me, Your Highness, what are your intentions with me?" The princess's eyes glittered with what might have been amusement, though her tone remained icy. "My mother is intrigued by humans and their impulses. You will be her subject of study." Michael raised an eyebrow, trying to hold back the fear that was starting to creep in. "A study? What kind of study are we talking about here? I hope this doesn't involve any probing." "You'll find out soon enough." The princess snapped her fingers. The guards untied him and dragged him through a maze of dark hallways. Finally, they shoved him into a luxurious chamber that, despite its opulence, was clearly designed as a prison. The door hissed shut behind him. Michael leaned against the wall, sizing up the place. He wasn't alone. Zinnia was there, standing by a holographic table that projected images of Earth, cities, oceans, crowds of humans. Her eyes darted back and forth, absorbed in every detail. "So now I'm an experiment?" Michael asked, breaking the silence. Zinnia turned her head toward him and gave him a defiant look. "My mother wants to learn from you. Humans are chaotic, passionate, and often irrational. She wants to understand what drives you." Michael let out a dry laugh. "Locking me in a cell isn't the best way to start a fruitful collaboration." Zinnia advanced toward him. Her eyes glowed like fire. "Make no mistake, human. This is not a request for collaboration. As long as you're here, you're mine." "Whatever you say, Princess Zinnia," Michael replied with a mock bow. "But I'm not so easily tamed. I'm a human male, nothing like your planet of space, wusses." She smiled, but the coldness in her eyes didn't change. "We'll see about that," she said, and then she left. That night, Michael remembered the last conversation he'd had with his ex-wife before she left him for good. "A human male is supposed to be a provider for his family, Michael. You spend your days chasing the next big deal, while he's already made it. He's an antimatter trade mogul. He can give me a life you never could." Those words were stuck in his heart like a dagger. The days passed. Every interaction with the two alien women was a game. They tried to intimidate him. He returned every threat with a dose of sarcasm. But something wasn't right. Michael started to wonder, what if this wasn't a pleasure cruise? There was too much security, too many protocols, and besides, where were the guests, the parties? The ship was completely silent. One night, while trying to plan his escape, Michael fell asleep, but a noise jolted him awake. Something was there, a presence. He turned his head, and there was Zinnia, leaning against the wall, watching him with an almost hypnotic intensity. "Do you always watch people while they sleep? Or is it just because I'm your favorite prisoner?" Michael asked, breaking the silence with a casual tone, though his eyes remained alert. Zinnia didn't even flinch. A shadow of annoyance crossed her face before she spoke slowly. "I was thinking about something," she said, measuring each word, "about how someone as insolent as you can be interesting." Michael got to his feet with a groan, stretching as the injuries from the crash reminded him of his situation. "You flatter me, Princess," he said, his voice heavy with irony. "But I still don't get what you want from me." She walked toward him with slow, deliberate steps, as if weighing each movement. Michael noticed the air grew thick, charged, as if her proximity electrified the room. "My mother thinks humans are irrational animals, slaves to their instincts," Zinnia said, her eyes shining with a mix of disdain and curiosity. "But I think there's something more, something that might be worth discovering." Just then, the ship was hit by a massive jolt. A voice came over the intercom on the princess's uniform. Michael could make out the words, "Your Majesty, recon patrols appearing in formation. There must be hundreds. The spatial warp they're creating is off the scale." The princess's face changed. Then he heard her mother's voice. "Proceed to the nearest wormhole for escape, now!" The princess rushed out of the room. And then he understood. The ship wasn't a luxury cruiser. It was a mobile fortress, and the Queen and Princess weren't on a pleasure cruise. They were on the run. But running from what? The ship dove into a nearby wormhole, chosen at random. A wormhole is a bridge through space and time, a kind of shortcut that takes you from one point to another, seemingly distant one. While they were traveling through the wormhole, Queen Ziara and Princess Zinnia confronted him again. "After what just happened, what do you think you know, human? Enough to know you're not out here because you enjoy space tourism." The Queen stared at him. Then she sighed. For the first time, she let her mask fall. My people are in danger. My family is in danger. We are escaping a coup on our planet. The Queen explained that her family had ruled the planet for centuries, not just by bloodline, but because of a special power passed down through generations. On the night a princess is crowned queen, she performs an ancient ritual. An immense energy emanates from her body, enough to power the entire planet for years. However, an enemy faction had found an alternative energy source. With this new resource, they managed to challenge her authority, establish a dictatorship, seize power, and force them to flee. For the first time, the human didn't respond with sarcasm. "You have my help," he said. The princess, surprised, was blunt. "Why do you care? You're not from our planet. You have nothing to gain. Besides, we made you a prisoner." He shrugged. "Maybe because I know what it's like to lose everything. Maybe because someone has to do the right thing. Or maybe because someone as insolent as you can also be interesting." She didn't answer, but something in her eyes changed. For the first time, she saw him as more than just a human. Meanwhile, the ship continued its journey through the wormhole, the one they had taken in desperation, without knowing where it ended. When the trip was over, they realized everything looked strangely familiar. The mother and daughter had been so unlucky, they'd ended up right back in the orbit of their homeworld, the very planet they had fled. They had flown right into the lion's den. When they realized, the mother and daughter were truly worried. Zinnia looked at her mother and said, "Mother, we don't have time. It's a matter of hours before the enemy takes our ship. We have to ask him." "Ask me what?" Michael asked. "We don't know if he's ready, my daughter," the Queen replied. "Mother, I feel he is the chosen one," Princess Zinnia said. "Is someone going to tell me what's going on here?" Michael insisted. "There is a way to win and reclaim the throne," the Queen said. "But we'll need you." "What are you saying?" "I told you about an ancient ritual where the princess generates an immense energy, enough to power our planet for years. That energy can also annihilate our enemy. What do I have to do with this ritual?" Michael asked. "The ritual is performed once in a lifetime. We call it the deep, intimate connection. In it, our most vigorous male must insert a part of his anatomy, one located between his legs, into the princess's sacred orifice. Then he must perform a series of frantic, rhythmic movements. If he does it right, he brings the princess to a state of ecstasy that triggers the energy blast we're talking about. I don't know if you have anything like that on your planet." Michael laughed. "Yeah, we have something like that, but we don't do it just once in a lifetime. We do it whenever we can. Well, some of us more than others." He laughed again. "I don't understand what's so funny, Michael. In our culture, this is very serious. If the male fails to bring the princess to that state of ecstasy, the energy created turns against him and kills him. We've been studying you because when we found you, we realized your human anatomy is highly compatible with ours. And on this ship, you are the only apparently vigorous male." "You mean you want me to perform a deep, intimate connection with Zinnia?" "Yes. It's the only way to release enough energy to destroy the enemy." Michael was stunned. His life and the fate of an entire planet depended on him bringing a young, attractive alien princess to ecstasy. Zinnia spoke up. "I can't explain what I'm feeling, but I just want to connect with you. I feel like you're the only one who can give me what I need." It was funny. The last time he spoke to an attractive woman, his ex-wife, she had thrown the exact opposite in his face. Of course, she was talking about money. All right, I will do my duty and make you see stars, and if not, I'll die trying." Michael's tone was solemn for the first time. The human's words resonated in the young princess's heart. "Michael," Xenia exclaimed, looking at him. "Something is happening to my sacred orifice. I feel an uncontrollable desire to connect with you." The process was strange. An alien energy surrounded them both, creating a bond that went beyond the physical. He felt her mind, her thoughts, her fears, and she felt his. It was as if their souls were intertwining, sharing every part of who they were. Michael, still sore from the crash, gave his all with every thrust. His heart was about to pound out of his chest. Xenia's eyes rolled back, and in that moment, an explosion of light engulfed the entire planet. The Queen, proud, remembered her own deep, intimate connection on the night of her coronation. The usurpers were simply vaporized by the energy blast. Once order was restored, Xenia ascended to the throne. The connection between them was so deep that Xenia asked Michael to start a relationship and rule together, and so they did. Sometime later, Michael was a new man. The days of having too many Alpha Centauri beers were long gone. Xenia had discovered that it was possible to connect with Michael on a daily basis, just like they did on Earth. Michael thought life couldn't get any better, but he was wrong. Destiny still had one last surprise in store for him. The unexpected revelation came in the form of a mystery from the past. The alternative energy source the coup leaders had used. It was none other than antimatter. Before being defeated, the rebels had left a massive order for this rare resource. What was surprising wasn't just the size of the order, but the recipient. It was none other than Juan Gonzalez, the antimatter mogul, and to top it all off, the new boyfriend of Michael's ex-wife. As they say, the galaxy is a small place. With his business on the line, Juan requested an audience with the new monarchs, Xenia and Michael, to renegotiate the contract signed by the former rulers. He was in debt up to his eyeballs after buying the machinery needed to fulfill the order, and he couldn't afford to lose the investment. However, when he arrived at the royal palace with his partner, they were met with an uncomfortable surprise. Xenia, firm and decisive, made it clear she would never support someone who had collaborated with her enemies. The meeting took an even more personal turn during a recess. Michael's ex-wife quietly approached him, looking nostalgic. "I think about you a lot, Michael," she confessed. But he, with a calm smile, replied, "What a coincidence. Now that your boyfriend isn't so rich, you remember me. But I'm sorry. Xenia gives me a life you never could, and I'm not talking about money." The scene made one universal truth clear. Some connections, like Michael and Xenia's, go beyond material ambitions, and others, like Juan and his partners, are as volatile as antimatter.
Did you enjoy the story? Tell me about it in the comments.